Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to be reacting to
Why U.S. workplace surveillance is banned in Europe.
Is being accused of tracking employees to monitor their productivity.
And they believe that in Germany, Amazon operates almost as a rogue agent.
Unsafe conditions within their fulfillment centers, ramping up surveillance on its workers.
But is this tracking doing more harm than good?
how would you feel being tracked?
An employee?
I think I would feel anxious a little bit.
I don't know. If I'm targeted, yeah. But if everybody's being tracked universally, I'm just like, okay, that's what it is.
EU headquarters in Brussels, Amazon workers told members of parliament how they were, quote, considered robots, tasked with achieving impossible productivity targets under near constant surveillance. You see, in warehouses across the globe, Amazon uses radio frequency handheld scanners that warehouse associates use to track customer packages, but also the employees themselves. Amazon tracks down to the second the amount of time individual workers spend in the bathroom or how quickly they remove an item from a shelf, and employees can be reprimanded for infractions such as talking to other Amazon associates or going to the wrong floor of the warehouse. But it isn't just Amazon who utilizes these kinds of employee tracking devices. A 2022 New York Times study found that in the United States, 8 out of 10 of the largest private employers track the productivity metrics of individual workers. Both blue-collar and white-collar employers now widely use algorithms.
It makes sense that, okay, they track the workers, but how they're tracking, I'm just curious.
Yeah, I want to see more. I don't know much about this, so I do want to see more.
To scrape worker personal data and use biometric scanning to follow worker activities, track eye movements, and measure performance productivity in real time through tapping into your computer's camera and mouse movements. So naturally,
I heard about
found myself
this.
asking, what
That is a
effect
little
do these employee
uncomfortable.
tracking programs
People got
have on
the
work?
special thing to make the mouse keep moving.
Yeah, now that somebody's on your camera, that's uncomfortable.
Place culture? And is it legally and morally sound to keep a closer eye on your employees? Well, let's take a look. In the United States, Amazon and Walmart are the two largest private employers, and with the help of their 1.1 million and 1.6 million workers, respectively, these two mega corporations have amassed unprecedented levels of wealth. Combined, their revenues totaled roughly $1.185 trillion US dollars in 2023, greater than the GDP of all but the 16 largest economies on Earth, and about the same as oil-rich Saudi Arabia's GDP. And the key to their success has largely hinged on unparalleled convenience and speed, pioneering new methods of getting cheap goods to consumers around the globe. However, numerous reports have surfaced, including a damning report by Oxfam, which supports the notion that both corporations reap high profits from increasingly oppressive forms of control, finding ever new ways to exploit, discipline, and maximize the productivity of their workers. At Amazon specifically, workers are assigned handheld devices or scanners that record, count, and measure every item they move during the day. But also, the employees themselves. One alert is triggered if an item was scanned too quickly or less than 1.25 seconds after scanning a previous item, increasing the risk of error. Another is signaled for breaks of 10 minutes or more, while a third tracks breaks between 1 and 10 minutes. These systems also measure down to the second the amount of time a worker spends not...
When you get a package from Amazon, when's the last time you got the wrong item? Oh,
It's been a long time. It's been
they're good on that.
They definitely because that's the thing, right? All of this stuff they're describing as a worker, it sucks, but that's why we're able to get such a low prices too. So for them to not do that, basically the population, people have to sacrifice and pay higher prices for less efficiency. So
because I don't remember last time I got a wrong package from Amazon. Like, what is
actively
this?
sorting, packing, or performing work, what is called time off task, or TOT for short. And what they record, or don't record, can lead to automated write-ups that penalize workers for not meeting production goals. According to documents filed with the National Labor Relations Board as part of a dispute at the recently unionized Amazon warehouse in Staten Island called JFK8, workers can receive a written warning for accumulating 30 minutes of time off task in one day at a time, in a rolling one-year period. If it happens on 3 separate days in that 1-year period, they can be fired. Those same records, by the way, at JFK 8.
I mean, that doesn't sound unreasonable. Half an hour a day, you're just chilling, doing nothing. That doesn't sound reasonable.
Why are they chilling and doing
Well,
nothing
that's
for
my
30
point.
minutes?
That's the point. Why
30
would
minutes?
if you're at work?
You
Why
think they
would
had
you?
break, man?
Exactly.
Oh.
So that doesn't sound reasonable. Like you have to basically have 3 days a year where you chilled for more than 30 minutes. So even 30 minutes out of 8 hours, it's not.
Unless what they're calling as chilling, like you're not scanning.
Yeah, you're not moving, basically.
Reveal that Amazon actually asks its managers to identify a quote top offender at the end of each shift and then inquire about their whereabouts for each timestamp registered in the system as unproductive and discipline them when appropriate. The documents also indicate that Amazon uses surveillance footage to corroborate employees' claims about their whereabouts and describe an instance in which a worker's alibi was later disproven using, quote, video footage, end quote. And if you're a Walmart employee watching this video, that probably also doesn't sound all that unfamiliar. Over the years, there have been numerous reports of Walmart using video surveillance in their employee disciplinary actions at any one of their 4,600 stores across the United States. In their 2018 study of Walmart, sociologists Adam Reich and Peter Behrman coined the term Walmart.
But they have to use video surveillance because otherwise, if the employees would sue for wrongful termination. So they have to use this to prove that, okay, well, here's why you got fired, here's the proof. So if they sue, they're like, okay, here, buddy.
Defined as an arbitrary authority combined with, quote, penetrative systems of observation, measurement, and feedback that constrain both workers and managers. The same year Reich and Behrman's book was published, Walmart was awarded a patent for new surveillance technology that would allow management to eavesdrop on workers, monitor customer interactions, and closely track employee performance. But I also think that it's very likely that these kind of surveillance and monitoring systems aren't just about tracking what employees are doing, at least not in their inception. Remember, Amazon and Walmart rose to power and became so dominant in the retail sector because of their
what happens in Europe.
We'll see.
unparalleled convenience and speed. And it's quite likely that a lot of these technologies were originally put in place to make them more efficient and make humans speedier. Keeping tabs on what they were doing and being able to discipline them for it is just a byproduct and a bonus, so to speak. Amazon has repeatedly stated that, quote, warehouse management systems are industry standard and are necessary for ensuring the safety, quality, and efficiency of operations and to track the storage of inventory and processing of
What the fuck is going on? Why she just don't put the text on the screen?
packages on time and in line with customer expectations. But it's really difficult to overlook the human cost of all of this efficiency. According to that original Oxfam report I mentioned earlier, 3/4 of Amazon workers and 74% of Walmart workers report feeling pressure to work faster at least some of the time. And more than half of the workers at both companies report that their production rates make it hard for them to use the bathroom at least some of the time. Now, obviously, not letting your employees use the bathroom would be an incredible human health and safety violation. And to give Walmart and Amazon the benefit of the doubt, I don't think they're explicitly banning their employees from doing so. Rather, what is likely happening is that it's just not really clear how or if or to what extent they're being tracked. And employees don't do these things because they're not sure if or
there was
how
a common thing that not even just for Amazon and Walmart, like they say the last thing you want to be seen at the workplace is being known as the person that's in the bathroom, because that means you're not working.
Yeah, I mean, how often do you go to use a bathroom a day? Like in an 8-hour work shift? 3 times? 4 times every 2 hours? I think, okay. Every 2 hours? 4 times? But if you go more than 4 times, I don't know. Like, 4 times is like generous, I think, in 8 hours. Like in 8 hours, 3 times is enough. But the 4 times is being, if you go more than 4 times, and how long you stay, if you just quickly take a piss and come back and 2 minutes break is whatever. But if you go take a shit for 10 minutes, 4 times a day, then diarrhea much? I don't know. Stay at home.
could be penalized. Reports do suggest quite strongly that workers are not told what the data that electronic devices are constantly collecting is being used for, nor are they properly notified of their privacy rights. More than half of one survey respondents, 56 for Amazon and 53 for Walmart, responded no when asked if the company had explained how it will use the data it collects from monitoring you on the job. Now, for Walmart's part,
They
the
probably
company's
do,
associate
but it's in that text that no one reads.
Yeah, I think They just didn't read it.
Information privacy notice states, quote, when you are at work or using company-owned equipment, the information that we collect and use about you is considered associate information. The notice further claims to provide, quote, increased transparency around how Walmart manages and uses associate information, end quote. But it does not specify the exact types or extent of the surveillance technologies the company uses to monitor its workers. Now, it is worth mentioning that while Walmart is no longer directly present in the EU any longer, the lack of transparency around surveillance specifically has actually landed Amazon in a lot of hot water and quite a bit of legal trouble here in the European Union. Last year, in an unprecedented move, over 20 leaders of major trade unions across Europe, representing over 8 million workers, called on European data protection authorities to ramp up oversight of Amazon's abusive and potentially illegal data surveillance practices. Highlighting recent regulatory actions, the union president cited the decision by the French Data Protection Authority, CNIL, on December 27th of 2023, which found Amazon France Logistique in violation of several general data protection regulations, or GDPR principles. The CNIL imposed a substantial fine of 32 million euros for creating a, quote, excessively
That's nothing
intrusive
for
system, end
Amazon.
quote, for monitoring employee activity and performance, along with penalties for inadequate video surveillance protocols.
I do wonder what Europe considers excessive. Like, how much can you collect versus, like, at what point did Amazon overstep?
But you know, they already have the issue with the social media apps collecting data.
Yeah.
So I'm not shocked with the workplace data collection.
It is worth mentioning that Amazon vehemently denies these accusations and states on their EU website that, quote, we strongly disagree with the CNIL's conclusion and we reserve the right to file an appeal. However, this was not Amazon's first confrontation with European data privacy laws. In 2021, Luxembourg's Data Protection Authority issued a 746 million euro fine against the corporation for similar surveillance practices involving European consumers, marking at the time the largest fine in the law's history. You see, the EU has much more robust data privacy protection laws than the United States, where there really is just a patchwork of state laws with varying levels of protection, and almost no protection when it comes to workplace surveillance, whether you're in a physical office or not. And you know, since this video is diving deeper into the right that we all have to workplace privacy and online security, I would say there's no risk. There has been a global explosion of the number of those who work with spying software to their laptops and smartphones. The goal is for businesses to monitor what their remote employees do all day and to track job performance, productivity, and reduce so-called cyber slacking. Software products like Hubstaff, which tracks a worker's mouse movements, keyboard strokes, web pages visited, email.
This is tough. Well, especially when the workers are remote. How do you measure how do you track them, what they're doing?
Well, there should be like a goal. Like, I don't know why it's based on how active they are versus how much they get done. I think if they have a target of what's to be done, then it doesn't matter how they get it done, especially if they're remote. Because now you're monitoring behavior in their home place. Even though they're working, they have tasks and they have to accomplish. If that task gets done and accomplished, how come why would you penalize them if they took a
But
break here and there?
They're
Unless you expect
the
more from
tasks
them.
from the remote workers that you expect that you give them, these are not like warehouse workers where you can count, okay, shipped 100 packages in an hour. It's not that type of task. Like, sometimes the task is like for programming. You sit here and you might sit there for 40 hours and write 100 line of codes, and just most of it's brainstorming. So how do you, what you gonna tell them? What did you do this week? Oh, nothing, I brainstormed. So the employee's going, what the fuck?
Well, no, I
It-
would think the manager is somewhat experienced to understand what that person is assigned to do. So it's like a check-in, okay, where are we at in this project, or what's our expectations, the timelines, when this should be accomplished. Like, for example, let's say you are doing like a coding and you expect, okay, is this a 5-hour job or a 7-hour job, or is it a 3-day job? I think there's a standard in the market where there's understanding how long this job is to take. And if that person is not meeting up to that standard, is always delayed, then you should hire someone else.
I don't think it's that simple. Like, yeah, certain jobs, this set job, write this and that's that. But for the complex systems that you're developing,
Their
something new,
salary, what is
something
there to watch them to see what is productivity? Their salary at that
that's
point.
true. That is salary.
If honestly,
So
if their salary, they can be taking forever. They still have to get that project done in that deadline.
that's true. For salary workers, this doesn't
Yeah.
really apply. And most remote workers would be salary workers.
Because
Yeah.
it would make sense to be on a person if it's like, okay,
Salary wage makes sense,
hourly,
yeah.
or if it's there's an issue where it cuts into the margin based on error, so you don't want error. And also you want customer satisfaction. So like for emails, if you're responsible for emails, you have to get them done immediately. It cannot
But
be 2-3 days.
that's easy to track because how many
Yeah,
emails
you
you
see,
did.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
that's just
That's
count.
but
That's
I'm
easy,
sure
yeah.
there's someone who's monitoring that because it correlates to customer satisfaction, and it targets and hits the company's
Yeah,
bottom line
like
at the end of the day.
customer service is easy to
Yeah.
track. That customer service, you don't need software or nothing.
Or
You
like
just see
the
how
phone
many
calls.
tests done. Yeah.
File transfers and applications used are surging in sales. So is T-Sheets, which workers must download to their smartphones so that employers can keep tabs on their location. The system creates a minute-by-minute timeline of every app and website viewed, categorizing each as productive or unproductive, and ranking workers by their productivity score. Another program called Time Doctor downloads videos of employees' screens while they work. It also uses a computer's webcam to take pictures of the employee every 10 minutes. Now, if you're watching this video from abroad, you're likely interpreting all this information as a gross intrusion into personal privacy. But the thing is, this is perfectly legal to do in the United States. Granted, individual state
The camera one is weird. I
Mm-hmm.
don't that, observing the computer, what I'm coding or whatever, taking screenshots of the screen, whatever. I can live with that. But the camera, I don't that does not that's just weird.
For me, how I take it, it's like if you're on assignment, like in regards with someone else, and they say, "Oh, this call may be monitored for this is for the protection of the employee and also the customer too as well." So I can understand that, and also understanding being filmed if you're actively working on a not coding, but like if you're working and it requires someone else, a witness to be there, I can understand this, but I can't imagine this is applied to someone doing
No, but like
something.
what
So
witness would you need? What job would you do as a that requires witness as a on remote worker?
like if it's like something that's like
I
like
don't
for
know.
notaries, you're
No, but
recorded.
you're recording yourself. It's not like somebody else
No,
is recording you.
well, the company is it's
Well,
it's saved under
okay.
the company. They
Yeah,
refer to
but that's
that.
fine. You that's your job to be on
Mhm,
camera though. This is like we sitting here on
Yeah.
YouTube right now recording. That's
I just don't think it's everyone who's being recorded. I think they're being recorded in some form, but some may require an actual camera to record them.
no, but I'm saying like if you're doing customer service and somebody's like takes 10 picture every 10 minutes of you doing customer service, it's weird.
I don't know if it's for the customer service one.
Well, I don't know what the job
Yeah.
for, but they
I would
say
have to know this to say, oh, that's outrageous.
laws vary over whether companies must inform workers that they're using tracking software. But generally speaking, when you're on your office computer, tablet, or using a company phone, you
Like, for
have
example,
no
I
right to
heard
privacy.
if you're on, like, if they're doing a meeting, they can request, we want to see you in the Zoom meeting.
oh, but that's fine. That's you that's a meeting, that's different.
But why do you need to see the person's face?
I mean, okay, the alternative come in person. So if you
But
want,
what is that need? Like, why do you need to see the person? That's
I
what
don't know.
people
Some
need
some people like to see others when they talk to. Nah, that I don't have a problem with that. If you have on a Zoom meeting and you need to be on the camera, that's I don't have a problem with that.
Current laws are vastly outdated and largely based on the Electronic Communications Privacy Act of 1986, when the primary form of electronic communication was the non-cordless telephone. On the flip side of things, many EU member states have a number of protection laws for remote and at-home workers, including that GDPR I mentioned earlier. And so, at the risk of sounding incredibly German here, we care a lot in this country about our Datenschutz. The Datenschutzkonferenz, a cooperation body of the various German data protection agencies, makes it clear that if the employer allows or tolerates private use of their company resources, like allowing you to use your phone to call home, then such monitoring is not allowed because it would be considered wiretapping. which is a criminal act, by the way. They also indicate that permanent surveillance in the employment relationship infringes substantially on the rights of employees and
So interesting. Basically, the idea is if I give you your company phone, company computer, and I allow you to do personal stuff on it off work, then I can't tap it. Makes sense. So basically, the only way I can give you and tap it is you can only use it for work only, period. You cannot call family, you cannot go on Facebook, you cannot go on TikTok, anything. So, okay, that's reasonable.
is usually prohibited. And thus, cameras are not allowed for the purpose of checking work performance, care, and efficiency of employees. Now, I don't want to give the impression that employee monitoring and surveillance never happens, because of course there are some notable exceptions. One of which, for example, is if there is concrete evidence and suspicion by the employer that their employee is doing some kind of criminal activity. In this case, they would be allowed to monitor that employee if there aren't any less intrusive options available. In addition, if you work at a place where surveillance of the general work area is necessary, like if you work at a bank or a police station, for example, then in these instances, surveillance would generally be allowed. However, targeted surveillance of employees will generally only be permissible if, one, the surveillance again is necessary for legitimate interest of the company, which outweighs the interest, rights, and freedoms of the employees. Two, if the surveillance is authorized by a particular law, or three, if the surveillance measures have been agreed upon between the employers and the employees in a collective agreement. For example, if it was negotiated with a workers' council. But this law is highly regulated because the German law respects the fact that there is a pretty clear power imbalance at play here between the employee and the employer. A worker shouldn't feel pressured or coerced into intrusive types of surveillance for fear of retribution or losing their job. And that really brings home for me why, whether you are an employee of Amazon and Walmart or not, we should care very deeply about the power and leverage we give powerful organizations over their employees. The remote and digital nature of the modern workplace has obviously created some uniquely challenging aspects for business owners to hold their employees accountable. But the right to privacy goes hand in hand with a relationship of trust.
I think,
And whether you
the
are
hardest part of the job is not the job itself, but managing the people. Because that could determine where your business either thrives or doesn't.
Yeah.
an hourly employee on a warehouse assembly line or an executive with a remote working capability, you
Because if
equally
you're at the
deserve the right
point
to
where
a
you could
dignified.
bring in and employ people, you're doing pretty decent. You're saying, okay, this is too much for me, just for me. I want to grow it if I want to make it more, to eat more from a pie, to involve others. But then when you're involving the others, it's always like difficult to kind of manage this. And I can understand the company's interest, you to protect their company, but also it's kind of like that line that you have to kind of walk on.
Workplace. Full stop. Managers often think that knowing more about what workers are doing is useful for making decisions or eliminating waste or compelling workers to comply with a firm's goal. But numerous studies have shown the more you micromanage and use surveillance tactics on employees, the less productive they become. And even when monitoring starts out as being something that is really good for efficiency or beneficial, it can easily creep into other situations that make workers incredibly uncomfortable. After all, like we saw with Amazon, the technology that was likely originally put in place to just simply keep the business working more efficiently and to track packages for customer experience also have unintended consequences that can really undermine the workplace culture and the productivity and health of the employees that work there. And while I think the EU has done an okay job of holding mega corporations like Amazon accountable for overstepping the regulations on this, after all, EU Parliament banned Amazon's 14 registered lobbyists from accessing its premises last year, citing the company's repeated refusal to engage with parliamentary inquiries and concerns over its labor practices. But I think they, and quite frankly other governments around the world, bear the burden of doing more. I mean, after all, you have this hugely influential mega American corporation that is now inserting itself into other markets abroad, regularly paying workers just slightly over minimum, while also implementing workplace policies that make employees feel like they're being robots. Yet all the while getting state support for its infrastructure and winning massively lucrative public sector contracts. This particular aspect of workplace culture isn't really just limited to the United States anymore, but is now slowly creeping into other workplaces around the globe. And so I would love to hear your thoughts down below in the comment section.
Can I see the
Interesting
comments?
video. As a European, I don't mind if the package I order takes a few days to arrive. I don't need 24-hour shipping. It is convenient but not required. And if getting rid of this 24-hour delivery would relax the strict work conditions, it's not the delivery time, it's the price. It would the price would go up because if one employee while being monitored has to ship, as I said, 100 packages a day, an hour, so let's say 10 costs 10 euros to ship for the labor for 100 packages. If you lose the monitoring and all the same performance goes down from 100 to 60, that's almost half. If I hear all this, I don't really understand why Americans call the USA the land of the free and why they believe the USA is the country with the most freedom. Well, the counter argument is that you're free to find another job that doesn't monitor. That's the freedom. The US really is this dystopia in so many aspects. Mm.
Guys, of course, let us know your thoughts. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Join the Discord. And as always, share as much kindness as possible. Bye, guys.